You're listening to the Medic Materials Podcast, hosted by Mike Turek, Emily Yates, Kelsey Coons, and Gerard Cuomo. All are current EMS providers and educators with a combined 30 years experience. Each month, we discuss EMS news, medical science, and review actual EMS calls, bringing many educational opportunities to the listener. Portions of the calls have been altered to protect the privacy and identity of all involved.
Hello and welcome everyone back to the Medic Materials Podcast, and I am officially almost all alone in the, very lonely bunker tonight. I am joined with, by Skype, Gerard and Kelsey. But,
Hello.
Hello.
But I have a very special surprise for you guys and everyone who's been following us for a length of time, a significant length of time. Gerard, I'll give you one guess of where I got this from.
Okay.
Kelly, 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 Kelly. Kelly, 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 Kelly. Why? Because you're Kelly, 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 Kelly.
Oh, shit.
Kelly, 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 Kelly of mine.
So we are joined with Kelly today, and I hope that she brings some good insight. Because Emily could not be.
She brings it.
she brings it. But you know what? She is such a pivotal part of this show that I felt like she needed her own theme music.
That's fantastic. I like it. The thing is I know that, and I can't remember where the hell it's from.
It is.
And as soon as you say it, I'm going to know it.
I know. I'm surprised that you weren't like, bam, there it is.
Right.
It is
I know,
Woody Harrelson from Cheers when he gets married.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he sings at the piano.
I knew it. That's right. I knew it. Shit. All right.
But yeah, so I am here all by myself with Kelly. So spark the conversation when you will, Kelly, please. You guys are going to join in via Skype, and we're going to have a really interesting discussion topic today. We're not going to do a call review. We've done a bunch of those recently. But I wanted to dive into the world of a cardiac arrest. Around here, they're echo priority cardiac arrests. A lot of other agencies and areas call them code 99s. So whichever one you guys, maybe there's something else that I don't know what it is that you guys call it, but we are going to be talking, how far we've come in treating and, diagnosing cardiac arrest, to the best ways to approach the scene, the mental aspect of it. I'm going to throw some tips out there for, how to actually treat the cardiac arrest on scene. And we'll just see where this conversation leads us. I got a couple studies to shout out to you guys. But, Kelsey, you and I were talking before the program started that I had a really freaking bad day. And I wanted to share with you guys why my day sucks so bad.
That's a great way to start.
Yeah. Because this is fun, banter. And
Okay.
So as you guys both know, I heat my home completely out of wood. I have a wood stove, completely heat my house during the winter via wood. So me and Jess are outside splitting wood. And guess what my dumbass did?
What did you do?
Cut yourself.
I cut myself, yes, but I also broke my left pinky finger today.
No.
Oh.
Wow.
Yep. So it's super
That's good
painful right
Yeah.
now. I haven't broken a finger in probably 15, 20 years. It's been a long time, probably since I was a teenager. And this fucking thing hurts.
I can imagine.
So
Yeah, I can only imagine.
It's good stuff.
I'm really glad that I didn't break it on my right hand, because then I'd have to call out of work, because I'd be like, I don't know how to fucking start an IV.
Right.
Like, I don't even know how I'm going to lift a stretcher, because just, it's in like one of the finger casts that you get at like CVS or Rite Aid.
Right.
And it's just, I had it taped together with some electrical tape earlier, but that was just more painful, and it kept bleeding. So, yeah. So, yeah. Like, I lifted one of the big rounds onto my splitter, and, the splitter is, of course, steel, and it's cold and snowy out. So when it hit the steel, it slid, and my pinky finger got wedged in between probably a 60-pound round and the wedge that actually cuts the material.
Oh, that's
in
not good.
in an
Awful.
instant. And I had gloves on and whatnot, and I came up and I'm like, oh my God, it fucking hurts. But I didn't realize it was bleeding yet. And, so I keeps cutting, like I'm shaking my finger out like a good man would do. Like, oh, it doesn't hurt. I'll go through it. And then.
All right, so you arrive on scene and you see this pussy shaking his hand and crying.
Totally.
What do you do?
Totally. That's literally how I felt, right? And Jess is like, what the hell happened? And I was like, oh, I'm fine.
Right.
And all the meanwhile, right, I don't realize that it is like profusely bleeding in my glove. And so, next thing I know, I get like this instantaneous wave of nausea. I get like that woozy feeling, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. Like, what the fuck is going on? And then I realized, oh, wait, I can't pass out. I have a pacemaker. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to finish up this log. Hopefully I don't go down, and then I'm going inside. So I'm like, Jess, I got to go inside. I walk in, and I'm like treading fast to get inside the house. And I pull off my glove, and I am just dripping blood everywhere. It's dripping out of my glove. It's dripping on the floor. The dog's licking it up as I'm walking across the
Of course he is.
oh yeah, it was gross. And I'm feeling again like I'm going to pass out. And then I felt my pacemaker start kicking in, and that thing probably went for like a good 7 minutes. So I probably would have passed out if I didn't have my pacemaker. So thanks, Doc, for putting that in. I appreciate it.
Right on.
Yeah, right on. They work. So yeah, that was my really bad day. So thank God it wasn't my bowling hand. That would really piss me off. Screw work. As long as if I couldn't bowl, I'd be like, screw my life. But
there's nothing left to live for.
Right, there's nothing left to live for. I can't bowl. So, all right, Kelsey, let's go into your rig check so we can start having this conversation.
Well, I'm glad you're okay and that you didn't, join the Butch
Croak
Club.
on us.
Oh, man, that's totally true. I could be like Butch. Oh, man.
Right.
Sorry, Butch. I don't want to be yet. Oh, I love that man. I hope he doesn't listen.
Mm-hmm. He probably doesn't. He hates EMS.
If it's the one episode that he listens to, it's not. I don't want it to be this one.
Right.
All right. Let's do that rig check.
He can regurgitate Scarbosa like it's freaking.
Oh, I know. The man is ridiculous.
I know. All right. Let's get serious.
Okay, guys.
Ever said before.
Okay, guys, so we have a new offer at Medic Materials. You can now buy us a cup of coffee, and if you know Emily and I, we love coffee, so at $5 a cup, you can directly donate to Medic Materials and help the show grow. Buying a cup of coffee helps us give back to you in the long term, and you do not receive a direct give back for donating out of the kindness of your heart. And just in time for the holidays, we have partnered with Leatherman, so if you're looking for a gift for your favorite first responder or yourself, click the link below. And a portion of your purchase will go to Medic Materials at no extra cost to you.
And remember,
you could also join us
Kelsey.
at Patreon and see us tonight on Discord to study with Mike or just talk about a call that you've had, but join Patreon and you'd have access to that. And
Which is
speaking of our Patreon listeners, we want to shout out our Patreon listener, Will, today. Thank you for joining us. And we're also going to shout out our listeners in Japan and Kansas. So thank you, everybody who has been supporting us, whether you donate financially to us or not. We really appreciate all the support that you guys have just listening to us every day.
You guys are awesome.
Konnichiwa and hey.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. There's no better sound than Macho Man.
No, there isn't.
It's really...
They should just dig him back up and reanimate him.
Oh, I need a Slim Jim. All right, so I
was gonna say now, when she's doing a rig check, you need to be more like Kelly.
Oh,
because you're stepping all over.
Well, I was trying to,
Kelly will say
I was trying to put in added information and thank yous, but okay, next time I'll just be quiet.
All right, so what is the added information and the thank yous?
Well, no, I just wanted to reiterate, buying a cup of coffee is a new way to support the show. Just like Kelsey said, there's no
that's pretty cool.
In Patreon, there's no like kickback. You can't like join a certain thing or get perks. It's literally just a cash donation. And all of those cash donations literally go into the Medic Materials Fund to be able to buy, the sound gear and the cameras and all the other stuff that we use to produce the shows and the content online. So it is not just like lining our pockets. But
You're not actually buying Emily and I coffee.
Right. You're not actually, buying this coffee.
See, now you let the cat out of the bag. That sucks.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that people knew that already.
This is radio. This isn't television,
But, I do want to say a sincere thank you to everybody. I know we beat this dead horse over and over, but it's truly, an absolute pleasure to be able to sit and talk with you guys. And, even though I don't get to, sit and talk with everybody, on a personal level, I feel like I can because you guys are listening. There's that personal connection between, our voices and your ears through the radio or your, sound system or whatever you're listening to us on. And, take it from me, you can listen to somebody on the radio or a podcast and, feel like those people personally after a while. And, again, I just want to say thank you to everybody who takes the time out to listen to us twice a month, 3 times if you're a Patreon subscriber. So that was all I wanted to add. I felt it was necessary.
That's good stuff, and I second all of it and yield the rest of my time to the gentleman from the north there.
Thanks. The great People's Republic of New York. So
I still consider myself an expatriate here.
Yeah, there you go. So guys, what would you say if I brought out a statistic saying that there are around, give or take, 350,000 cardiac arrests per year in the United States, and that is a direct AHA statistic. Do you feel like?
Being honest, I'm surprised it wasn't higher.
Now, see, that was exactly what I said. I felt like it would be higher. You're thinking, 50 states, that's a lot of land. The United States is a big, big country. 350,000 ain't a lot.
So it's pretty much 1 per million.
What states have the highest rate of cardiac arrest?
No, not one. Yeah, we have about 350 million people here, right? So 350,000. All right, that's I mean, it's that sounds about right.
I mean,
when you really think about it.
Yeah, it's just a number that was very surprising to me. And going off of the AHA data, when we think about cardiac arrests, the out-of-hospital survivability is still only about 5 to 12%, depending on where you are in the country. And
if you're with me.
Can I come up with a statistic for you?
Go! Sorry.
Damn!
I shouldn't have said that.
That's
I just
awful.
don't have the luck, man. I don't have the luck.
It's if we're truly being honest, I've only ever had one actual save where someone legitimately walks out of the hospital and lives a normal, healthy life. And that's 1 in 14 years. So
the closest I ever came was the one where she, hey, they took her upstairs and, you got her back and great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then 3 days later, oh, yeah, they sent her to hospice.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like, damn. All
right. Almost I had a win,
Almost.
Yeah. So, Kelsey, you were going to ask something?
I had asked what the state with the highest rate of cardiac deaths is, and apparently Oklahoma and Arkansas are tied.
I was going to say it had to be someplace in the southern region.
You just have to go where there's barbecue.
Well, Arkansas has the highest heart attack rate, but Oklahoma has the highest death rate linked to heart disease for cardiac arrests.
Interesting.
Wow.
That was one.
I would have thought that would be like Mississippi or Alabama or something like that down there.
Yeah, that was one statistic that I did not bring in. That's interesting. I wonder how many, out of that 350,000 are supported in those two states. But yeah, so, looking at this, when I first started EMS, this is going back 14 years now, the out-of-hospital survivability was under 3%. It was like 2.7% for survivability from EMS. And now, 14 years later, we're looking at anywhere from 5 to 12%. So, like, what do you guys believe was the jump in that? Do you feel like it's just EMS is getting better? Or, like, is there a significant cause for that?
So I had actually thought about this because you had mentioned prior some statistics that you were looking forward to, and I think that we have all these new developing technologies. I mean, most agencies, especially around us, whether the paramedic or just even a BLS ambulance carries like a Lucas device or a thumper or something that's going to provide quality CPR, no matter if you're on the road or if you're in somebody's bedroom. No matter the circumstance, they're still going to go until the battery dies. And the only thing that's ever been proven effective in cardiac arrest reversals is good CPR. Like, sure, we can throw the box of drugs at them and we can provide good ventilations to help, perfuse the brain. But at the end of the day, if you're not circulating anything, that person is not coming back. And I think just that basic device itself has helped so much in like our long-term care.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the things that I was going to bring up later on in this discussion was the fact that good quality CPR is going to save your patients over everything else minus electricity. You take CPR and electricity and you could throw everything else out of the bag. You don't need drugs. You don't need anything else. CPR, really good, quality CPR and electricity, and you can fix most of the cardiac arrests that are out there. It's not the epi that you're going to give. It's not the amiodarone that you're going to give. It's not the whatever that you're going to give. It is the electricity and the good quality CPR. And, one of the things that, I bring up is there was a survivability study in King County, Washington. So that's the Seattle area. And they did.
I've watched Cops.
For those that didn't, that's the Seattle area. I just visited there. It's very, very nice. So yeah, they did this survivability study for cardiac arrests in and around the Seattle Fire Department's district. And they did it, like 10 or 12 years ago, and they found that their out-of-hospital cardiac arrest survivability was just like the average from 10 or 15 years ago. It was about 3 to 5%. And they said, well, why is this going on? And they looked at how many providers were CPR certified, and they looked at how many civilians were CPR certified. And they said, wow, we really don't have a lot of people here that are CPR certified. The providers are, but nobody else is. So, like, mom is not going to thump on granny's chest until EMS gets there because they don't know how, So what they did was they took all of their money and their resources and they put it into educating the public and getting the public CPR certified with, now hands-only compression CPR. And it's actually to the point where they have a mandated requirement for all high school students to graduate with a CPR card. It is a requirement of their graduation of high school that they have to do a CPR class in school and graduate. So what would you guys say if I would say they redid this study last year and they redid all of these numbers for survivability? What would you think it is 10, 12 years later?
I think actually it's going to be higher it's funny that you mentioned it because this was taught to me in my EMT class. My instructor's like, the best place to drop dead is Seattle. They don't care what you're dead on the ground for. They're going to start thumping on your chest anyways.
Yep.
Because that's what they were trained. I mean, when I was in 8th grade, which wasn't that long ago, we weren't CPR certified, but to graduate health class, we just did like a basic CPR class. So we weren't certified in anything. We were just taught, like the 30 to 2. We didn't even get into like pediatrics or anything, but like just rapid response of like, call 911, start CPR. They didn't teach us much more than hands-on. But I think even that, like, even bad CPR is better than no CPR to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even having that little bit of knowledge when that situation arises may help the patient long term.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when you actually look at the numbers going from, 3 to 5% to the second study was performed 62% survivability for out of hospital cardiac arrest. 62 motherfucking percent.
That's insane.
Like, that's a number that I will never, ever see in this area in, the United States. I'll never see that. I might see it in Seattle, but I'll never see it anywhere else. That's unreal. And you know what? Any providers that are, because I know we have providers listening to us in the Washington area. Good for you guys. Like,
For real.
I throw my hat. I tip my hat. You guys are fucking awesome.
But at the same time, you're saying that you're never going to see it. What's to stop? I mean, a lot of the agencies, especially in our area, have pretty good working relationships with the schools. So it's not that hard of a program. I mean, we all have to take a health class to graduate. We all have to take a gym class to graduate. It's really not that hard to make it that it's a requirement to pass one of those classes to have a CPR card. I mean, would be a super easy program to implement across the board. All of your gym teachers have to be CPR certified. Send one of them to be an instructor or have one of your local agencies come in for 2 days and do it for free. Long term, it's going to benefit your community so much better. I mean, we all have grandma that we want to survive if something happens in front of us. Not all of us have that background behind us that would know what to do.
Right. I'm not disagreeing. It is a super easy solution. I just don't see the people that run things, especially in our area, to put their focus and mind to it. Yeah. I don't see it happen. Gerard always says, follow the money. I don't see it. CPR classes don't make a lot of money, and I just don't see it, and that's the sad part, is that we're always following that, that greenback, and we shouldn't, it is clearly working. If you go from 5 to 62% survivability, there's something to be looked at there. Like, hey, we should probably do the same thing over here, But I wanna. There was a AHA journaled article that came out in February of 2020. I'm gonna link it in the description. There's 2 of them that I'm gonna read from today, so I'll link this one first and then the next one after that. But over the past decade, survival after resuscitation from cardiac arrest has increased. We've seen that, right? We've already said that. The estimated annual incidence in the United States for out-of-hospital cardiac arrests treated by EMS is 184,383 encounters. Of that, 350. And the incidence of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest has increased each year. Survival to hospital discharge after EMS treated out-of-hospital cardiac arrest is estimated 10.8% to 11.4%. The annual incidence of in-hospital cardiac arrest is estimated at 209,000. Survival to hospital discharge after in-hospital cardiac arrest is 25.8%. And the thing that I want to get out of this is a lot of people look at, in-hospital and out-of-hospital numbers, and we go, well, why is there an increased survivability in the hospital versus the lower out of hospital rate? And really, it goes to witnessed cardiac arrests. Gerard, how many times have we gone to calls where somebody finds somebody down? Who the fuck knows how long they've been down?
Right.
We start CPR. They're maybe cool. They may be slightly warm. Maybe they've been down for an hour. Who knows? Right? They're in asystole by the time we get there, and we secure it after 25 minutes. Right? But in a hospital, someone starts coding.
They work it forever.
Right.
Typically, they see it fairly quickly, and then they work it. And typically, they see it so quickly that they can get them out of it fairly quickly. So, you know, survivability increases in the hospital because it's all witnessed, right? And if we can increase the witnessing of CPR or, you know, cardiac arrest to initiate CPR out of hospital with training high school students. So everybody's trained, right? Even if you let your cert lapse, you still know how to do it. You know, you can just be a person that, oh, that guy collapsed. Let me do some CPR if he doesn't have a pulse. You know, there's apps now. Pulse Point, right? Pulse Point, I think Pulse Point Respond or Pulse Point Responding is, you know, it mostly works within the cities. It hasn't really done a lot around here from us, like in a rural standpoint, but you can download apps that are linked to your county or city dispatcher, and you will get a notification of a cardiac arrest that you are within a certain circumference of. And you'll be like, oh, look, at 125 Jones Street, there is a cardiac arrest going on. I guess I'll head over there. And so, because they want you to be able to see it quickly and get someone thumping on the chest, because it might take ambulances 25 minutes to get there.
Right.
You know?
So I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because we brought that up in class today, and I was thinking about it. Is how do you guys feel as, like, you know, the providers there? Because sure, it's all great, but I mean, we've all met the overzealous volunteer firefighters. Now you've got overzealous, you know, nosy neighbor next door. How do you deal with that, like, long term almost, where like, okay, great, thank you for your service, we don't really need you anymore? Because it's kind of rude to kick people off when they're the ones that have been helping you.
Yeah, no. If you keep thumping. I got other things to do.
Yeah, I mean, well, and really, Gerard's onto something, right? The fact that some providers and agencies don't have Lucases or thumpers, you know, at this point in time, that's out there. That really, you know, there's agencies in our area that don't carry them, and you know, you might be relegated to manual CPR. So yeah, like, let my EMT take over for a little bit, and then, hey, after 2 minutes, guess what? Get back in there until the cop comes, right? And then my EMT and the cop and that person now can switch off. All I have to do is say, hey, are you CPR certified? Yep, cool, keep going. You know?
And I've even done where, hey, come here, put your hands like this, do what I tell you to do, and, you know, give us a hand here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've shanghaied family members before to jump down and start doing something because, yeah, we didn't have, you know, any kind of Lucas or anything like that, and we didn't have a lot of manpower. So it's like, hey, you know, come here, do this. Here's how you do it, and then you just kind of coach them while you're doing, you know, your other thing.
Yeah.
So.
And I've done the exact same thing. It is a great strategy. You know, I've done that not just with you know, like, hey, do CPR, or hey, you know, like, I'm going to teach you really quick how to bag and you're going to do it and I'm going to watch you. But I do it most of the time. I would say 90% of the time, I Shanghai people to be my note takers. So I'll sit there and I'll be like, hey, all right, I'm giving an epi. Write down what time it is, and then you're going to, you know, look at your watch, and in 3 minutes, you're going to tell me it's been 3 minutes. So then I don't have to sit there and worry about what time or how, like, what, oh man, I missed my epi by 12 minutes because that person's keeping, you know, keeping an eye on my time for me. And that's super helpful. So if you can do that with a nurse, with a cop, with a family member, with anybody, do it. you know? So I want to go into some generalized questions, getting your guys' thoughts. You know, we've all run cardiac arrests. We've all run code 99s. Gerard, how do you go about preparing? Like, you hear the tone go off, echo level response, you know, police, fire, EMS for, you know, unknown cardiac arrest. What is that mental prep as well as the physical prep for that call while you're getting out to the truck and going to there? What do you start thinking about and doing?
Well, you know,
you take your pee.
To joke around, I was gonna say to joke around, I would say that's when I started thinking about law school. But no, so for me, you know, something like that goes out, and it's I don't really waste a lot of time getting to the ambulance. Get in, get going, because you know time is money.
Right.
And
time is tissue at this point.
But on the way, usually the first thing I'll do is verbalize the plan with my partner, so that there's no question about what we're going to do when we get there.
Yeah. Hey, I got to give you that.
All right, macho.
That is amazing. I love people who do that.
I asked Justin. That's what I do. It's pretty much what I do. I'll sit there and say, okay, here's the deal. We get there, I'm going to grab, you know, my ALS bag. I'm going to grab, you know, my monitor, and I'll grab the airway bag. I need you to get the portable suction, the Lucas, and you're first in. You know what I mean? So we all know what we're carrying before we even stop the car.
Yeah.
And then in my own head, once we've got that established, you know, if there's still time, I'm thinking about it. I literally just start thinking about ACLS. I start, you know, just running through I mean, I've done it 1,000 times, but, you know, I always just want to go through in my head and make sure I remember, you know, what I want to do, you know, how I want to do it, my dosages, what medications I'm using, you know, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you know, depending on what monitor you want to use, you know, don't forget to set the right, you know, energy. You know, when you go in, because they have their, you know, it's like 200, 300, and, you know, 360.
Right.
I think that's for physio. But yeah, so I do stuff like that and just kind of just mentally prepare for, you know, the chaos that's coming.
Yeah, I think I do most of that. I mean, I even start running like the mega code in my head. You know, like, okay, this is, you know, I always assign tasks. You know, I'll sit there and, you know, calm, cool, collected, because if you're not calm, they're not calm. You know, family's not calm, police aren't calm, firemen aren't calm, partners aren't calm. You need to be the calm in the storm. And, you know, and it sounds horrible, but this is the realistic way that you have to think about it. You are going to treat someone who's dead. You cannot fuck up and make them more dead.
Right.
They're already dead. You can only fuck up and not make them alive. It's okay. So realistically, we should not be going into a cardiac arrest with a humongously stressed out vision. You know, we shouldn't be walking in like a fucking, you know, ape bouncing off the walls, because there's nothing to be worried about. They can't get worse. And I know that sounds terrible, but they really can't.
And usually we're, you know, we get there and we start getting our gear. That's usually when I say, hey, you know, if they've got somebody banging away, you know, you go secure the airway.
Yep.
I'll get the pads, I'll get the monitor set up.
Yes.
And then after that, go ahead and, you know, if you can swap out with somebody, you know, that is qualified to bag that person, by all means do it. If not, you stay on the freaking airway, and we're just going to swap, you know, thumpers in and out until we get our Lucas set up.
Yep.
If we have one. And and then from there I do my thing.
So I think the biggest thing that I think about is like all the oddball stuff, because like at the end of the day, your ACLS is the same. And like, especially running through like the arrest scenarios we're running in lab right now, like it's the same every single time.
Yes,
so I feel like in my mind, like I think about like the oddball stuff. Like I want all of my stuff on the stretcher so I could just grab, like I will, especially as a third, like I'll put everything on the stretcher so we can just grab the stretcher and go. And I've done an arrest as a BLS provider, and I was an EMT, and my partner was a driver. So I quite literally sat in the back and threw all of my stuff on the stretcher and was like, okay, like, this is the plan, because he's like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, we're going to get the stretcher as close to the patient as we can, so anything and everything that I need is going to be right there. And I think a big thing that I think about too is, what kind of help do I have? Is it 3 a.m, so nobody's going to show up for this? Or is it, 4 o'clock in the afternoon and the other crew's in service and I've got all the hands in the world?
Right.
And I think thinking about like the oddball stuff, is there somebody there that, maybe there's one EMT who's really great with the family. Okay, great. Like, can you talk to them and see if you can figure out anything else? Think about the oddball things, because at the end of the day, you're going to run the code the same way you would every other time, unless you can find like an H&T cause that you can turn it around with.
Right. And
Everything else is just about the same.
Right. And even those H's and T causes are repetitive, right? Oh, look, we found this. Okay, I give this. Okay, that's fixed. Go right back into ACLS,
Well, and here's another thing that, I think is paramount. Verify before you do anything that your patient's actually in cardiac arrest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You think I'm joking. But I think one of the last ones I did with Justin was we get there and it was echo cardiac arrest. Every week we get in there, and I kneel down next to the guy and I look at him and I'm like, he's looking at me.
They don't do
And I
that.
said, right. So I said something to him and he blinked and then started talking to me. I said, well, okay, yeah, let's not do anything, please.
Yeah. And
So,
you know what?
yeah.
It's not out of the ordinary, because I've done a few of those, Gerard, where, someone's thumping on the chest and next thing you know, I'm like, stop, please. Please stop.
If the patient's grunting, they're not dead.
Right. So Kelsey, I do have a specific question for you. Now, you outlined a lot of what you're thinking, but kind of take me through the transition of, like, you and I have done cardiac arrests where you're a BLS third, and now you're doing cardiac arrests on your own as the big bad paramagician. And you're learning how to do it as the provider in charge. For, the people out there that are the transitioning providers like you, what have you found, like, scary and or helpful about the transition?
So I think, like, when I was a BLS provider, like, the first arrest I ever did, they plopped me I did CPR, and then we transported, and they're like, okay, like, you're gonna bag the patient out. And I think ever from that point on, I always just chose airway. OPA, bag the patient, wait for the medic to get the tube, bag the patient. Our palm vents fail quite religiously. So
God,
I
they
always,
suck.
sat there, bagged the patient, and I got to watch everything. And there were some things that I loved that people would do, and there were other things that would make me cringe, even as, 16 and not knowing anything. And I think having that experience, if you're still a BLS provider and you're thinking about going on, maybe just sit at the airway, because you can sit there and count to 5 and be helpful and be doing your job really well and still be watching everything that's going on around you. The issue is then when I transferred into medic school, I ran the worst code of my life like 2 weeks ago. Let me tell you, it is really hard to be in charge of people. Even people that are going to school with you and know exactly what they should be doing.
Yep.
It is still incredibly hard, because there's always a miscommunication factor, and we've all been on 100 codes, and we're all used to going on codes, and, we're all rotating through, and we're all running the code or doing the meds, or we all know what we're supposed to do and what's supposed to get done. And you would think that it would just run flawlessly because everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. And then there's a snafu somewhere along the way and you're like, oh, I've just got no meds on board. Or, my timing is really, really off because apparently I just am really bad at looking at my watch. So I think, like, I was always so used to just sitting at airway and, like, watching everything. And there were certain things that I picked up on that I really liked. And that helps, but at the same time, like, the minute that you become in charge, like, you don't actually do anything. You just kind of stand there and direct things.
Well,
Yes.
And it's way easier
Yes.
said than done.
It's one of those things where you have to recognize that that's your new role. And until you do, you're going to fail. because you're maintaining that micro view of the situation. Your world is now that IV. Your world is the IO. Your world is getting the, the bag spiked. It's not managing what's going on, and you've got a bunch of cats and you need to herd them and get them to do what you want. And once you realize that you have to take that macro view of the whole thing, that's when you really start to become, I think, really successful at no matter what the outcome.
Right.
We don't gauge it by the outcome, because if we did, we'd all suck. Well, which we do suck, but I digress. But I can't say how many codes I've come off of where not the outcome we wanted, but coming out and, hey, I'm not necessarily high-fiving people, but I'm definitely giving pats on the back and saying, hey, nice work.
Right.
That was,
yeah.
that one real
Terrible
smooth,
outcome, but good job.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you can tell when a code is being run smoothly and when it's
not.
It's someone trying to hump a doorknob. It's not. It's just.
No!
It's just. It's pretty obvious.
And right, and I think both of you touch on a lot of what providers go through, their struggles in a cardiac arrest. I wholeheartedly agree. The paramedic needs to be the macro view. Now, that does not mean that, okay, I'm the only paramedic on scene. I'm not doing the IV. I'm not doing the. I'm not pushing.
No, I'm just standing here until somebody else shows up.
Right. That you still have to, place your IO. You still have to, place your airway. You still have to give your drugs and do your rhythm checks and all this other stuff. But as soon as another ALS provider comes in, even if it's like an ILS provider, like an intermediate or an AEMT, where they can run a cardiac arrest by themselves. Right. They can give epi, they can tube, they can IO and an IV and all that good jazz. Then you can step back and you can be like, okay, what does this whole scene need? Okay, that guy is starting to freak out. I'm going to take him and I'm going to put him on something else. Or we're going to redirect
here's
him.
The clipboard.
Right? Yeah, well, and that's it. You need to be the captain of the ship. And you really need to play that role, and if you're calm, looking at the whole thing, it calms all of your minions. And then, go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. So in my former life, we used to have a saying. God, I've got a lot of sayings from my former life now I think about it.
You have a lot of sayings in general.
Right? It's, I got to stop that. I got to find some new material.
No.
It was basically, if you look at an instrument for more than a second, you're staring at it. All right. So you had to keep a scan going in order to, maintain what you wanted to maintain. And I've actually taken that into, what I do now as a paramedic, and especially with working a code. A few other instances as well, but mainly, when we're doing a code, it's okay. I'm going to get the IV or I'm going to get the IO. Boom, that's done. Take a breath, take a step back, and look around.
Yes.
I scan the entire field of play, and it's like, okay, everything still looks cool. Okay, now I'm doing my next thing.
Yep.
All right, now I'm getting the pressure infuser going. I'm getting the fluids in. All right, now I stop, take a look. Okay, good. Boom. The next step he's going in. Okay, take a step back, look. If I'm by myself, that's what I do, because that allows me to, I can go micro for a second to get my skill out of the way and do what I got to do, and then jump back and go back to macro and say,
right.
Hey, is anybody, has somebody started doing foot only CPR? I mean, it's, what I mean? So you have to be able to jump between those two roles where you are, performing an intervention and then jumping back and going, okay, now I'm back to being the manager. Is everybody doing what I want them to do?
Right.
Okay, cool. Now I'm going back in,
Yeah.
Until, of course, if you can get, a second medic or, like I said, an intermediate or somebody else there that can,
back your own skills up. Right.
Yeah. Then you can kind of step back and, okay, I'm going to be over here by the monitor and, drop drugs and stuff like that.
Yep.
Where
Yeah.
I keep an eye on
the
everything.
hardest thing to get used to is like the rhythm of it, because like I've been on codes where you're looking at it and you're like, wow, like they're just flailing out, and like I even know that there hasn't been an epi in a really long time. And then I've been on other codes and everything just flows like seamlessly and nobody's stressed out, because you, just like you said, you can't make them more dead. But like the hardest thing I think to get used to is the rhythm, because it's all timed. It's all 30 to 2 CPR until you can get good like advanced airway. So it's 30 to 2 CPR until then. It's a pulse check every 2 minutes. It's an epi every 3 to 5. It's AMI after that. Like it's such an easy rhythm, but I think we overthink so much of it that like you don't want to be standing there just staring at your watch.
Right.
And let's be honest, there are people that, and I'm not trying to freaking, be critical or anything like that. It's just some people, they're just not wired that way, and they let themselves get excited.
Yeah.
And they let themselves become overwhelmed. I think with experience that kind of helps get rid of that. If you're one of those people. So, if you are one of those people, recognize it, and don't worry, you'll get past it.
Well, and if you're not to step on you, Gerard, but experience does play a lot. If you are a seasoned paramedic and you see, a paramedic that is not so seasoned, step back and be like, yo, you're in charge. You're going to run all this.
Right.
Like, and take over if they do flail, but give them the opportunity, or step up yourself and be like, yo, I've never run this. Like, I can't wait until Kelsey and I get one on her internship, because I'm not doing a goddamn thing.
He's going to stand there and be like, figure it out.
I will sit there and talk with the family. And that's until she says, Turek, I need you to do this because I'm delegating. Then I'll be like, yes, ma'am, here you go, it's done. But she needs that experience.
And I've had one. Yeah, I mean, I had one at our favorite facility there, where I wouldn't say he was a inexperienced paramedic. Not by far, but I think there's a bit of a confidence issue, and I kind of picked up on it pretty quick. And I just kind of maintained the calm, asked him, what would you like me to do? What can I do for you? And then when he would be like, hey, is that right? Is this right? Or is that, yep, no, you're doing great, man. Keep going.
Keep going.
And just that little bit of reassurance. And I mean, sometimes you got to be the quarterback. Sometimes you got to be the coach,
Yes. Yep. So leading into this, I want to talk about why we give medications on a code, right? I think there's this whole misnomer about why we give epinephrine and why we give, amiodarone, and why we give, all of these different kind of drugs during a cardiac arrest situation. And when we start to think about, like I said in the beginning, if you have good quality CPR and electricity, you can fix anything without drugs. Epi is not magically going to, giving an epi is not magically going to switch their rhythm from, VFib to sinus. It's not going to happen. You need electricity to do that. Right?
And I think, going back to the Wayback Machine here, where we're talking initially of, why has our, kind of success rate, gradually increased over the years, Seattle notwithstanding,
right?
Because that's a whole class all by itself. But I think, one of the things, you've got your, more education for the public. You've got, don't forget, you've got dispatchers now that are trained to coach people through CPR who've never done CPR. That's a big one. I mean, they usually, I remember when it was basically, hey, okay, I've got somebody in cardiac arrest. Okay, well, just hold on, they're on their way.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But now they coach them through it. So things like that, and we can get into the equipment and the drugs and all that good stuff. But I mean, you think about it, and it's funny. It was a joke. The Fire Department Chronicles guy, when they did you
Fan favorite.
Was it the crusty veteran or whatever it was?
Yes.
And
Yep.
he's like, all right, we got a cardiac arrest, so give me 2 epis and a bicarb. And they're like, you sure that's what you want to do? Okay, well then no, 4 epis and a bicarb. You know? It's like that's all they did back then, right?
Yep.
So now we've learned
And an
new
atropine.
ways of doing things. And what was that?
And an atropine.
Right, and an atropine. Right? So and a precordial thump too. Don't forget.
Oh
that
yeah, man.
Right? Oh yeah. So, but I think just our progression in understanding, because I mean, let's face it, we went from Johnny and Roy, not too long ago, just a little bit outside my lifetime,
Yeah.
to where we are today, and that's not a big time span.
No.
To go from we don't know nothing except putting water on hot stuff to hey, look what we can do now. We show up to your house with an emergency room.
Right.
And
Right.
I think a lot of that, the evidence-based medicine, right? We figured out, okay, this is what we want to do. 4 epis and a bicarb. Okay, that doesn't work. What else what are we going to do now? Okay, let's try this lidocaine stuff. Hey,
Yeah.
look, that seemed to work pretty good.
Yep.
And then from there on, I think it's just been the natural progression, and
Right.
that's kind of why we've ended up where we are. I think the next step going would definitely be like take a Seattle model and start maybe applying that to the national level.
I 100% agree. And, the reason I brought up meds was not to deter anybody from giving them. That is follow your ACLS, please. But I want you to understand why we're giving meds, right, in a cardiac arrest. A lot of people think that it's specifically it's going to fix the heart. No, you are preparing your patient for ROSC. That is what you're doing, right? You're giving your EPIs so that when your electricity or your CPR works and they magically then have a blood pressure because they get return of spontaneous circulation, they have epi on board to give them a blood pressure and to maintain a blood pressure. And you're giving the amiodarone so they don't go back into the ventricular rhythm that you just fixed with the electricity. And so we're doing all of these things not specifically for the cardiac function, but for the ROSC function. And ROSC is such an important thing. We kind of overlook ROSC and we go, oh, cool, we got pulses back. We need to move immediately and get them to the hospital.
Absolutely not.
And exactly, no, don't, no.
No, stop. And that's another. Oh, what a great example to build up on what I just said. What I just talked about. When I started doing this, it was, hey, patients in cardiac arrest, and even especially if you're at a BLS level. Oh, patients in cardiac arrest, quick, throw them in the ambulance and run.
Yes. This is
now,
on my list to
work.
Yes. Which
great.
is
So now it's, hey, we stay in play, until we get ROSC, and then when we get ROSC, we're gonna stay a little bit longer.
Right. And you know what? I actually am so happy that you brought up transport times, because that was literally the next thing that I was going to. The stay in play or, versus the move to the ER model. And because they're still teaching BLS providers to move to the ER. And yet they're teaching ALS providers around here to stay in play for 25 minutes. And then if nothing, secure on scene. Call a doc, secure on scene. And I'd be interested to see what other models are from across the country or the world that listen to this show. So on the Facebook post, comment and let us know, because I'm truly intrigued what other models use. And I found a AHA journal from May of 2020 that the conclusion, and I want to read the conclusion here because it's a long journal article. Again, I will link it in the description of this show. But out of hospital cardiac arrest patients with shockable rhythms transported to a cardiac arrest center. Now, that's where I was having a trouble finding exactly what a cardiac arrest center is. It is not just any old hospital. It is a specific specialty hospital. We don't have any of those around here other than I'm assuming the one in the state capitol would probably be one. But out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patients with shockable rhythms transported to specifically cardiac arrest center demonstrated higher probabilities of survival to discharge and a good neurological outcome at discharge. Direct ambulance delivery to cardiac arrest centers should thus be considered, particularly when out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patients present with shockable rhythms. However, if you go to the update from the American Heart Association that we all get, it's, you can transport if you really need to, but we'd rather you stay on scene for 20, 25 minutes and secure it.
Right.
So it's really interesting. Like, we don't have a cardiac arrest center around here that I know of. They're not labeling it on the front door.
Right.
Cardiac arrest center.
I think for us, we just assume it's going to be one of our cardiac centers.
Right. That's what you would
but
assume.
But it's not specifically labeled a cardiac arrest.
Right. It's
facility.
not Joe Blow cardiac arrest center. Right. Joe Blow trauma center. It's not. That's not it. So I'm.
They really should make it that easy.
They really should. I'm gonna dive into this more, because with my broken finger, I didn't have an opportunity to really deep dive into this, but this is something that I'm gonna actually come back to, because I think it's a really interesting, discussion to have. Like, we've been told for a while there is no benefit of moving cardiac arrest patients because CPR quality decreases tenfold if you're doing manual compressions. If you're doing, a Lucas, who cares?
All you people out there that, I'm sorry, we keep stepping on each other. It's this damn, I don't know. There is a delay, I think, because I hear you and you stop, you're pausing, so I start jumping and then you are still talking.
It's quite all right.
It sucks.
The floor is yours. I yield my time.
We should probably adopt Robert's rules. The gentleman from the South now has the floor. Okay. Thank you, Chairman. What I was going to say is, how many of you out there that have experience? You've been around the block a few times. How many times have you seen moving a cardiac arrest patient, getting them off the floor onto a stretcher, out of or Reeves or whatever, to get them out of the house wherever they're at, get them into the ambulance. Just in that segment of patient extrication, movement to the ambulance. How many times do you see CPR completely stopped?
Mm-hmm.
Ventilation's completely stopped.
Yes.
Because it's just, you can't do it.
Right.
Sometimes you just can't do it. Sometimes people get all caught up in straps and other things, and they go, oh yeah, I should be thumping on that chest for a little bit.
Right.
And it's one of those things where I'm hoping that we've learned that lesson. And whether you're BLS, ALS, wherever the hell you are, if you have especially a witnessed arrest, don't wherever
stop.
you got them, that's where you want to work them.
Yeah.
Don't stop.
Don't stop. And like you said, when we were talking about the ROSC, if you get ROSC, that's your time to stop. Stop, do a 12 lead, get a baseline set of vitals, call a doctor, get orders for what you want, on the route, start packaging slowly, see what their rhythm's going to do, see how your extrication's going to be. Because if they are going to recode, it's going to be exactly when you move them.
Exactly.
People are so unstable when we move them. So this is not the time period if you get ROSC to be like, oh my God, I need to move now. It is the time to slow your roll.
Right.
And really make it the best one move that you absolutely can, so that you can get them actually to the cardiac center. And please, this was going to be something that I was going to touch base on later, but please start transporting your cardiac arrest patients to the appropriate facilities.
Right. Yeah, the whole, we have to have them stabilized.
Right.
Yeah, no, get that out of your head.
A ROSC patient should not be going to the nearest close hospital unless it is a cardiac center. Go the extra mile. Call a helicopter. They can do CPR in a helicopter. It is not a myth. They will fly critical patients. It's kind of their job.
I heard that.
Yeah. You know, yeah.
See, I wasn't aware of that one.
Last time I heard somebody in ROSC from, cardiac arrest, that's a critical patient.
That's a critical patient.
Yeah, it's kind of what they do.
You know, those are things that you need to be thinking about in your flow. You know, this is not just like, okay, I'm thinking ACLS and that's only what I'm thinking about. There's that macro view, as Gerard and everybody has said. Macro view is very important. So
I think Kelly reiterated that as well.
So Kelly actually just she brought up a really good point. She kind of whispered it here to me. I'm apologizing for Mike didn't bring it up. She's still very shy, very shy. Yeah. But she brings up a very interesting question, and she wants to know whether not we should be intubating our patients, taking the time to actually put an ET tube down the trachea into the lungs, or whether we should now be moving to a secondary airway like a King or a combi tube on first pass, on first try. So I want to get your guys'
paramedic student
thoughts.
Kelsey give her opinion on this?
I would love paramedic intern Kelsey to give her opinion.
Okay, so I actually feel like this is really cool because we talk about this a lot in class. We just learned digital intubation, which personally I feel like is a party trick. Like, I like the idea of visualizing that the tube is passing, but if you can do it and pull it off, good for you. Not my fan favorite, but we were talking about.
Just verify when you're saying digitally, we are talking about the fingers, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, there's some people out there gonna be like, oh, cool, they got like a super borescope or something.
No, digital. But we were talking about in class the one day how King Airways actually, like your normal rescue device, if you inflate the cuff, just a little bit too big, will actually press on the carotid arteries, which could actually decrease your perfusion to your brain. And I feel like, I'm not saying intubation isn't a big skill, but I feel like lately I've been practicing it and, it's all in under 30 seconds. So how long does it really take you to, you don't have to work on RSI meds. It's not exactly like you're doing nitrogen washout on the patient. So how long does it really take to grab your stuff and just drop the tube? I feel like overall, what are you going to waste 2 minutes? And you're not going to lose any perfusion by pressing on the carotids that way.
So I will answer that one.
Okay, because I definitely have things to add to that.
Oh, okay.
No, but you go first.
Okay, so for me personally, and once you get out there, and if you guys that are listening, if you're in paramedic school, you're going to find that you're going to do your own thing. So you're going to have all this stuff and the way you were taught and all this, good stuff, and it is good stuff. But then once you get out there and you start getting your mojo, you realize that, what, I'm going to do things my way, and I want to do things the way I want to do it within, the scope of practice and within the protocol. So me personally, if it's an arrest where I believe we have an opportunity or a chance to get them back. So, it's not where you went to the nursing home. They said they were fine 10 minutes ago and they're stiff as a board and cold.
I'm sorry, that's not funny.
Whether it's witnessed or
you know what? Hold on. Pause for 1 second.
I'm holding.
I have to ding the nursing home staff on that one.
Thank you. All right. So whether it's witnessed or unwitnessed, if you can tell if this is going to be, a viable effort. And if it is a viable effort, then I will perform a full ET intubation when I have done everything else and we're ready to, just continue working, the algorithm. Once everything else is done, all my procedures, everything else, I've gotten a couple rounds of epi in, we're at that point where, okay, are we going to, continue with the college try, or are we, kind of not really expecting a good result here? Then I'll go for the full ET. If it's one of those, especially if it's unwitnessed and, there's some maybe not complete, signs of obvious death, but you kind of know that this ain't going to work. Or if it's something that we've gotten no rhythm changes, it's just been steady where we, when we walked in, I'll usually I'll just drop a king and go from there. Because at least I've got a secure airway. If, the gods decide to favor us, all well and good. If not, then, at least I have a secure airway at the very least. But yeah, if it's something where, hey, we're getting, rhythm changes, or, we're going to get ROSC, or, witnessed arrest, we've got a really good shot at this, then yeah, I'm going to go for the full enchilada.
So
that's all I got.
That's all you got.
Kelly.
So yeah, Kelly.
Oh,
Kelly's,
I'm sorry, Kelly. I didn't mean to step on you.
You totally stepped on Kelly. But so it's actually very interesting, Gerard. You and I agree 99% on this show, and you and I are going to kind of diverge here.
Okay.
And I don't think either one is wrong. I really don't. I think, like you led into the conversation, we all find our flow, right? So the way I approach this is Kelsey, let me ask you this.
Okay.
The way I teach you how to intubate, right, at 30 degrees, head elevated, as proper positioning for intubation, do we do that in a cardiac arrest situation?
No, and that's really hard to do CPR while you do that.
It's really hard to do manual CPR when you're leaning your patient up. If they're on a thumper, you can get away with it. If you're on a stretcher, you can still do the thumper and chest compressions at 30 degrees. But now we'll say we're doing it on a nursing home floor or a bedroom floor. Yeah. So
just the thought of being on a nursing home floor.
I swear you just made.
It's so sticky.
Hold on, I swear you just made 8 people in their cars go. you triggered someone's gag reflex. Right. It's great. So, so say you're on one of those supine surfaces where you're doing manual compressions and you can't lift them up, right? Or even one of those supine positions where you're doing, mechanical CPR, but you can't lift them up, right? Is your view going to be pristine, or is it going to be, well, I couldn't get it because it was anterior, man? Okay,
well, that's when you just learn your anatomy and...
Okay.
Well,
now
you also want to do, when you're doing something like this, you want to make damn sure you have the best shot at doing it too.
Right. So now,
I mean, I understand that, but in the hospital, I mean, they're just gonna rip your tube out and put a real one in anyways.
Hold on. So, knowing positioning is everything, right? How many times, and knowing that we as EMS providers overly suck at intubations, right? We poorly oxygenate them because we're in a cardiac arrest situation. We're freaked out because we're in a cardiac arrest situation. We don't properly position them, and then we get an anterior airway, and what are we doing? We're fumbling in that airway for a minute. And then we're like, okay. And then we go in for another minute. And then we fuck that one up. So then we pull it out. And then the next provider goes, and they fuck around for a minute. And now we've desatted this guy for 3 minutes, which is an anoxic brain injury. And all we had to do was put in our direct blade and put in our secondary device. And you would have been done in 30 seconds. And that's it. Right? Now, so that is why every single cardiac arrest, I will do a king over an ET tube. Every single one. However, if I do not get to it in the time that it takes to get ROSC, and they get ROSC, and now I'm like, okay, well, they're a ROSC patient, they're still unresponsive, I'm going to have to either RSI them or tube them, or I'm going to have to just tube them because they're unconscious, unresponsive, GCS of 3. At that moment, I will properly position them, go through the whole rigmarole, and intubate them with an ET tube. So that is where my distinction comes from.
And we're actually not far apart, because you actually said it better than I did. And for me, it's literally almost the same thing. We get ROSC. You know, if I don't have a tube in, they're getting the full enchilada.
They're getting a real tube.
Full ET intubation.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, we've worked those together. I mean, you've seen. Yeah. Hey, guess what? We're working this patient. Hey, get that king and jam it in there. In fact, I did it hanging upside down on the bed with Kelsey there that day. You know, so. Well, I lean over the side of the bed upside down like a freaking orangutan. Like, hey, how's it going? Here, hold his mouth open.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and you know what? And I mean, they're so, even the combi tubes, they're so simple and easy. Yeah. They ventilate well, they suction well, they perform perfectly. They should not be considered rescue airways. They are secondary airway devices. And I think if we take the rescue airway out of the verbiage and we start calling them secondary airways, we won't be so scared to transition to them first. You know, and be like, oh man, you know. We always say,
go
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, you know, we always say, oh, you know, ET intubation is the gold standard. Okay, yeah, no, I agree, it's the gold standard. But you know, a king airway is not, you know, a piece of shit. It's the silver standard. You know, it's not that bad. Silver's pretty good.
Yep.
You know,
I 100% agree.
It's not an OPA. You know,
right? It's still an ALS airway. Yep.
Yeah.
And whether or not the hospital rips that tube out and re-intubates, I don't give a fuck. I did my job. That's not my problem. You know? So in kind of, you know, ending here, I just want to hear your guys' last kind of tips for, you know, conducting the arrest or after the arrest or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that, like, the new technology is making it harder for us to secure on scene? So we all have, you know, Lucases, and we're getting better with rescue airway devices, so our patients are being ventilated properly, and we're circulating the blood properly. And maybe, you know, your end title's not skyrocketing really high because you got a pulse, but you're just doing really, really quality CPR. Do you think that, like, we're making it harder to secure on scene and then ultimately giving the family false hope?
No, I think exactly the opposite. I think we're at a point now where if I'm picking up the phone to call a doctor to get a secure order, I am 110% confident that we have done every single thing we can possibly do. There's no doubt in my mind this person is not coming back. Because if there is, you know, then we're not stopping. I think, like, even when I first started doing this, there were times where it's like, you know, I don't know, let's just throw them in the ambulance and go, because we don't know. It could go either way, even though we kind of already knew that it wasn't going to happen. You know, or you try to get a secure order and you leave. And I do remember one, and this is back when I was still in EMT, and we secured one on scene, and we're driving away. And in my mind, I was like, fuck, I think we secured too soon. You know, I didn't, you know, make a big deal of it because everyone, you know, did their best. But it was one of those ones where it was like, yeah, I don't think we did everything we could have done, you know. And but I think now with all the, you know, the technology, the Lucases, the, you know, the super duper monitors, the freaking, you know, all the cool funky drugs we have now, you know, yeah, I think now when we secure, you can be 100% confident when you tell that family we did everything we could do, and that's it. You know,
I couldn't have said that more, so I'm not even saying anything. That was perfect. Literally
don't
perfect.
Be like Kelly.
Hey, I'm agreeing with you.
But yeah, I mean that's my take.
I have one more question. Shocker.
Mhm.
So we have talked about, you know, how, sorry, Kelly interrupted there.
What a
I know, she's
bitch,
so
Kelly.
rude.
Shut up.
Right?
Gosh.
So we've talked about before, you know, that the minute that you secure, you have another patient, and we've talked about like you're the person that that family is going to remember for the rest of their lives. But how do you guys feel about letting the family help? Like helping them along with that grieving process and letting them watch, letting them, you know, help bag the patient, because at the end of it, you know, maybe A, you need the hands, or B, because they really want to do something, and maybe that'll help them along in the grieving process, knowing that they also had the ability to try and help save whoever they love's life.
So I'm gonna
I
jump
think
right
you're
in.
getting
It's something like that.
I'm gonna jump right in here, and I'm gonna say that from a legal standpoint, if they are not certified to do the job that I'm giving them, I'm not going to give them that job. Because if there's a poor outcome, they can be like, well, this provider let me bag them and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and now my grandpa's dead and it's his fault. So I'm not going to, like, if they're, you know, CPR certified, if they're an EMT basic and just off duty, if they're a off-duty paramedic, whatever, then maybe. But hell, I've even told doctors, you know, there's been doctors that have been on scenes of mine, and, you know, they're like, well, I'm a doctor. I want you to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, are you my region's doctor? And they're like, no. I was like, well, then you're as good as useless to me. Like, hold a pulse, see if it's there. Tell me if we get anything back. And so sometimes you have to distance them from a legal standpoint. Now, what you can do is, sorry to cut you off, Gerard, I just want to finish. What you can do is you can take them, you know, and be human to them. We've done a whole episode on being human and having humanity to your patient's family who's there witnessing everything and having to go through all this. So not just being like, oh, what's this patient's demos, and here, sign this billing form for me, and oh yeah, they're dead. But sitting there
and who's hungry?
Right. And sitting there for, you know, an hour and a half after the calls ended, and talking with them, making sure that you know, that you can leave them there safely, that, you know, everything's, that they have somebody with them, that dinner's cooked, that they're not going to, you know, jump off a bridge or whatever afterwards, that you can sufficiently leave, because they are a patient too. And
or in the case of some, making sure they don't become another patient for you.
Exactly. Be a human. Don't just write them off. Talk with them. Explain what you guys are doing. Sit there and don't be like, well, yep, they're in ventricular fibrillation and we're going to cardiovert them at, you know, or defibrillate them at, you know, 360 joules and blah, blah, blah.
1 milligram EPIs. You know?
Fuck all that. Be like, listen,
right.
Their heart isn't working the way it's supposed to. It's not providing, you know, blood to the rest of the body, which means, you know, they are dead right now. We're giving them drugs. We're doing CPR. We're, you know, giving them air through whatever, you know, method that you are. And we are doing our best, you know, efforts to try and make this a good outcome. But be honest. Tell them, listen, we've been doing this now for 20 minutes. We've been doing this now for 30 minutes. We've seen no change. You know, we have to come to the realization that we might have to stop soon. Are you okay with this? Explain it to them, you know, because they're going to we have to stop eventually. And you have to be that vessel to then sit there and take their emotion on, and their questions on, and their worry on. And you can't just sit there and be like, yep, dead, sorry, did all we can, bye. But that's what most providers do. And we need to stop that and be better humans.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I'm gonna call for a secure order, before I do it, I'm gonna let the family know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I go and talk to them before I pick up the phone. I have my EMT or whoever is, I leave the conga line in place doing their thing, and I go and talk to the family and say, hey, lay it all out. This is what we did. If they were in the room with inside of us, I explain a few things of what you saw us do. We're not going to get a good outcome here. It's not what we wanted, but we've done everything we can. And I'm going to call a physician right now to terminate CPR.
Yep.
And I asked, is there anything else you would like us to do? And 9 times out of 10, I mean, actually 10 times out of 10, they usually say, no, we understand, we understand you've done everything you can do. And, that's pretty much it.
Right.
And then I go into my whole, hey, can I cook you breakfast? Or,
Yep.
what do you need from me? Because I'm at your disposal for as long as you want me.
Right. Yep.
And, but as far as Shanghaiing people, I will never Shanghai somebody and put them on airway. Never.
Well, that was
but-
just the first thing that
but
popped
I
in my
will-
mind.
If I'm in the position where I have no choice, I will coach someone through compressions. Whether I don't know what their status is, we need to have compressions done. If a dispatcher can do it over the phone, I can do it 10 times better in person. So I'll do that. But that's about it. I won't. I'm not gonna say here. Put this OPA in and start bagging them. And then you
It'd
look
be
up and
fun.
you have the OPA sticking out of their ass, and you're like, wait, no. This is going horribly wrong.
So, so I just want to, end in just your last tips, for the providers out there that are listening that maybe haven't run their, a cardiac arrest yet, or a seasoned provider that's run 100. What is just the last tip for you guys that you can throw out there for them? If you need time to think,
Kelly, that was awesome.
Yeah,
Kelly was right on point there. And I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. and to piggyback off of what Kelly was saying, because she brought up a very good point with fly car medics. We really haven't touched about the fly car medics. If you are ever in a position where you show up and you are first, you are the provider
You are
in
an
charge,
EMT.
and you are, the paramedic in a fly car, and you don't have but the dead body and the family, and then you. What do you do? This is something, Gerard, you stated in the beginning of the program, you said, I think about what I'm going to do. Every single time that I work a fly car shift, I run a cardiac arrest scenario through my head. Every single time. Because I'm going, okay, I'm going to walk in there. What's the first thing that needs to happen? CPR. I have a Lucas. Cool. I'm going to put that on. What's the next thing that can free me up?
Pads,
right? I'm going to put on my pads, and I'm going to see if I can defibrillate them. Okay, nope, I can't defibrillate them. What's the next thing that can free my hands? Airway. So typically I will go to airway because I have a palm vent. So I will drop a king and I will put them on the vent. So now my Lucas goes continually. I don't have to stop. My vent goes one breath every 5 seconds because I can set it to that. And then I will do my IV or IO and start to give meds, because at that point in time, all I have to do is sit at the IV site, look at my monitor, and give drugs. And I could sit there for an hour. It doesn't matter. So if you're
saying, and to make that as simple as possible in the most simplest of terms, just follow CAB. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Just like when you first arrive on scene for cardiac arrest, right? We do CAB. Same thing when you're doing especially if you're by yourself and you have a Lucas. Yeah. If you don't have a Lucas, then hey, guess what? You're doing compression until you can find someone else who can do it.
Yes.
Well, somebody had to find the person, so I'm assuming there's somebody else in the room.
Yo. But
or they've I'm not, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy and do the whole stereotype thing. I'm just going to say there have been people who will call and say, my friend's died and they're in cardiac arrest. And then you get there and like all their friends are gone and they're just laying there and you're
Bye,
like,
Felicia.
who the fuck called? Right. Bye, Felicia.
All right. So, again, last bit of advice for you guys.
So yeah, for me, I would just maintain your presence of calm. You know, it's a procedure. It's just you're following, you know, a flow chart. That's all it is. You know, but by the time you leave paramedic school, if you're brand new, or if you've been out there for, you know, fucking 20 years, you know, you've got the muscle memory for your skills are fine. It's just maintaining that calm and following the flow.
Yes.
That's it. You know, feeling the flow, working it, circle. You know.
All right. What would you say,
You know.
Kelsey?
I don't really know if I have any good advice, but I feel like the best advice that I've ever gotten is just the fact that like you can't make them more dead. So you might as well do your best, be there for the family, cry it out after if you need to, but you did what you could, all things considered.
Yep.
Yeah, no. And just to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, and not to sound like a fucking horrible ghoul, but what do we always say about our skills, right? Right? You know, high acuity, low frequency, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I don't want to sound like a fucking asshole,
but you are.
Hey, you have an opportunity to drop a tube. You have an opportunity to do an IO. You have an opportunity to do things that you don't normally get a chance to do, you know, every day. Especially if it's, you know, if it's something where, you know, let's say it's kind of iffy whether or not, you know, like you start to, if it's pretty obvious that they're not going to make it, so, you know, obvious that, you know, 100%, you know, they're ice cold, they've achieved room temperature. Yeah, drop the tube anyway. Get your ET in, get your skills down, because there's nothing like doing it on a real person.
Yeah.
I mean, I had one where, you know, I was like, yeah, this dude, yeah, he's, you know, I could have chilled my beer under his armpit, and yeah, not that I had a beer on scene, wow, but
Hold on, was it a Stone Cold Steve Austin Broken Skull IPA?
Broken Skull IPA, that's right.
I was thinking about how to pull that in for the last 5 minutes, and you just did it for me. Thank you.
There you go, swing away. But no, and I'll never forget. I mean, it was one of the, you know, it wasn't too long ago, and I was like, you know what? I haven't done a freaking intubation in a while. Fuck it, let's intubate the guy. You know, I mean, wow, yeah, I really got to be careful. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's like being in a cadaver lab, but I mean, that's about as close as you're gonna get. But
also at the same time, I mean, say not that you're gonna use the body as practice because that just sounds awful, but doing your but
there's no
okay,
good way to
I'm
say
gonna put a positive spin on it, Gerard. I'm gonna have
like
your back
fucking
here.
Body snatcher.
I'm gonna put a positive spin on it. I'm gonna have your back here. Doing stuff like that shows the family that you're doing everything you can. Yeah. Whether there was no shot in the first place or there was a legitimate chance, you are fully able to look at that family and say, I did everything I could. And just that little bit of peace of mind makes it 10 times better for them. Yeah. There's my positive spin on it for you.
That was perfect.
I will never forget that one too, because when we actually did transport that one, just because it was one of those things where there were some people getting a little on edge on scene, and it was like, you know what? Let's just go to the hospital with this one. And so we ended up transporting it to the hospital, and I'll never forget walking in, and the first word out of the nurse's mouth was, "Well, did you get a BG?" I'm like,
thanks,
can I have my
Emily.
hands full? So yeah, right. It was to be fair, it was not Emily. This was another nurse. And I'm just like, yeah, I get it, but this dude's better than Disco. No, I'm not taking a fucking BG. You know. Sorry.
Oh, shit. All right, with that, I'm ending this. I'm pulling rank. Thank you guys again for listening, and hopefully Kelly can join us. Emily can join us next time. Thank you guys for joining us from your own secure bunkers elsewhere in New York State here. Till next time, guys, stay safe.
Should we let Kelly say donuts? There, she just said it.
Perfect, Kelly. Thank you.
Perfect. Oh, an excellent tone, too.
To end on a good note.
Oh, yeah!
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you'd like more information on the podcast or to send us a call to review, visit medicmaterials.com/podcast. To learn more information, like us on Facebook at Medic Materials EDU, or watch our weekly instructional videos on the Medic Materials YouTube channel.